Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special webinar, summer webinar. I think people are joining, so we'll just wait a couple of minutes. So today's webinar is focusing on teleworking during the COVID pandemic. As I imagine, many of you are working at home or teleworking and not in your offices, or you're starting to go into your offices maybe in smaller numbers and spending some of the week there. So this has been a challenging few months for everybody. It's been a challenging few months for SMEs, and today's webinar is brought to you through a collaboration with some of the SME clusters around Europe. So with Cyber Wales, Cluj IT, Cyber Wales in Wales, in the UK, Cluj IT from Romania, Gaia in Spain, and the Hague Security Delta in the Netherlands. So today's webinar will be looking specifically at supporting small businesses in coping with the COVID crisis. So you've seen that cybersecurity threats don't go away when there's a crisis. In fact, they change. This is what we've seen with the COVID situation. Cyber criminals are continuing to attack people's systems and trying to access information from organizations, maybe through various channels, but now with a COVID-19 flavor. So we've seen the setup of malicious domains, so websites with the word COVID in, for example, COVID-19, malware, so the spread of communications channels, for example. More malware, spyware, and Trojans have been found in things like interactive coronavirus maps and websites, and also ransomware has been used to attack medical centres, hospitals, and public institutions, and also normal companies. So new threats are also emerging as well. There are likely to be more online scams due to the economic downturn. Individuals are being targeted through spoofing and exploitation of digital content, and attacks on virtual communications tools as well that people are using from home. So video conferencing tools, for example. So the climate is changing and the landscape is changing. So today's webinar will look exactly at these topics. So today's webinar will be looking at supporting you. So we'll be looking at some of the challenges, first of all, with Ciprian Opriza from Cluj IT. So looking at some of the challenges and risks for SMEs in this period. We'll then be hearing from Marit Zimmerman from the Digital SME Alliance, which is partner in cyber watching. And we'll be looking at some of the actual solutions, digital solutions in times of COVID-19. And then finally, John Davis from Cyber Wales will be giving some vital tips and must-dos for cybersecurity that hopefully can improve the posture of your organization and also improve the best practices of your staff. So in fact, we're using a video conferencing system today, and I wanted to highlight this as a best practice. So how do you know? You have so many mails and invitations to video conferences. How can you know if they're okay to use? And this is an example of something that's come out of the Cyber Wales cluster. It's a video conferencing selector which helps somebody who's unsure. Maybe they've received a link to a new video conferencing system they've not used, and it helps you to understand security and privacy controls, basically. So this is a tool that can be used and accessed by SMEs. And there's a good example of improving your company's posture at this time when perhaps a lot of staff members are working at home. I wanted to highlight the Cyberwatching project, which is hosting the webinar. We have a mix, and you'll see at the end with who's online, we have a mix of people from the small business community, but also from the research community. And part of our job is to provide a channel to give visibility to some of the innovation, some of the services and innovations that are coming out of research and innovation funded in particular by the European Commission. We also provide, so we have an important link to the SME community, in particular in giving value to new cybersecurity services and also to help raise improve best practices and awareness of cybersecurity to the small business and micro enterprise community. So we have three tools which are currently available, which look at improving GDPR posture. The first two, GDPR temperature tool, which helps you understand how at risk your company is from a GDPR sanction. So, and then also a brand new tool on the information notice tool, which basically again improves the privacy aspect of your company. So you can complete these tools and you'll get a set of recommendations on next steps that should be implemented. There's also a very simple and very accessible questionnaire, which looks at basic cybersecurity best practices as well. And this again is a nice thing to share with particular staff members, and it provides a checklist of what you can do to improve your cybersecurity posture. We have two new tools coming out, one which looks at cyber risk and assessing your company's risk to cybersecurity attacks, and helping you to understand how vulnerable your organization is. And then in November, we're very pleased to announce that we have a collaboration with SGS on providing a lightweight cybersecurity seal. So we realize that standardization and certification for SMEs is a difficult thing, very heavy as well and expensive. So we hope that this first lightweight self-assessment cybersecurity seal can be a first step for companies to improve, again, their cybersecurity posture. So it's all part of the European Commission strategy to improve access to small businesses, so improve access to self-assessment tools, etc., so to improve cybersecurity best practices. On the Cyberwatching website, we have a big marketplace where we have over 120 services and products and results from research projects. And you can see on this slide, there's some examples of what are useful services in the time of COVID. So, you know, risk management services and training as well, which you can access. I also wanted to highlight the EXO Cyber Solidarity Campaign, and they have a COVID cybersecurity response package where they have various digital solutions listed in this document, and there is a link here, but it's quite a valuable document in terms of seeing what is out there in Europe already from many providers who provide practical solutions already to improve cybersecurity posture. I'd also like to highlight a questionnaire which we are promoting, and we'll send the link out to all the participants. If you've got time, it'll be 10 minutes of your time. It's a simple questionnaire just to look at how companies have coped at the time of COVID, in particular regarding cybersecurity and privacy. Your personal data will not be collected, and the results will be used for a recommendations document which we're putting together, which will go to the European Commission. We have 50 registrants online. I think it's over 50 now. So you can see the spread kind of reflects the focus of our project. So we have good coverage from SMEs and large companies, and also from the research area, and a nice spread of countries as well. So we're very pleased with that, and thank you for your time. I know it's the holiday time, but I hope that the presentations will be rewarding for you all. So with that, I'd like to I'll stop sharing, and I'd like to pass the floor to Ciprian. And I'd also like to say that what we'll do is we have a big block for questions and answers at the end of the presentations, but if there's anything pressing that you'd like to ask after presentations, then we can maybe take a couple of questions then, okay? Okay, Ciprian, away you go.
Okay. Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can hear you anyway, and I can see your screen too.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. I am Cipriano Priscia, and for the next 10 minutes, I will be talking about teleworking and cybersecurity in times of COVID-19 challenges and risks for SMEs. So when the COVID-19 started, most companies started working from home. So I've talked with a lot of friends, a lot of co-workers, not necessarily in the security area, but mostly in software development companies. And I asked them, okay, what's happening when you're working from home? Of course, they're taking their laptop home. And what's happening when you're taking your laptop home? Well, basically, you have your work laptop, you input your Wi-Fi password, and boom, you're connected to the internet. Now, that's the most simplistic vision, but in fact, that's not correct, because for most of us, in order to connect to the internet, we're actually connecting to the Wi-Fi router that gets connected to the internet. Okay, this is also a very simplistic view. And why is that? Because instead of just using the Wi-Fi router to connect to the internet, you have multiple devices in your network that are also connected to the internet through the same Wi-Fi router. For instance, I expect most of you have smartphones that are connected to the router, and then the connection goes through the internet. You have smart TVs or entertainment systems. You have other computers. And some of you, maybe most of you, have also IoT devices like robot vacuums, smart plugs, smart cameras. All of this needs to connect to the internet, and all these connections go through your Wi-Fi router. Now, the problem is that when more devices are in the same network, they're all connected together. They all can talk to each other. They all can attack each other. Now, here comes the problem. Do you trust all these devices in your home network? Do you trust that the phone or tablet or laptop that is controlled by your kid won't run any malware? Didn't your kid try to download a game that proved to be a malware, and that malware is right now present in your home network? The problem is that all devices that are inside some network have an implicit level of trust between each other. They have more ports open. Now, one recommendation here, when you bring your work laptop home, is if you're using Windows, just click on treat this network as a public network. This will limit the number of services that are exposed. But unfortunately, it won't be enough. For instance, let's see what happens if one of your IoT devices get hacked. Now, most IoT devices comes from shady vendors, like most of them come from China. Most of them have really low security measures. So what happens if a hacker gets control over one IoT device that's in the same network as your mobile or your work laptop? Well, they can start to trigger a port scanning attack. They will map all your networks, see which services are you running, see where you're vulnerable. They can perform denial of service. They can block some of your internet services. They can do data theft because they can see which shares are exposed in your local network, and maybe they can steal your data. And the most problematic is they can use local area network exploits. For example, the well-known exploit used in these scenarios was the Eternal Blue. It was in 2017, an exploit that give the ability to exploit, to have remote code execution on any device that is in the same LAN as your device. Now, of course, this exploit has been patched, so I will stress this later. You need to have the latest software updates installed. Another problematic thing would be what would happen if the hackers would get control of your router. The router is basically another device that is in the same network as you, but all your traffic from your laptop to the internet will go through this router. So there is a multiple attacks range that is also available for an attacker controlling your router. Like, he can do DNS hijacking. So for instance, you want to connect to google.com. First of all, you do your browser does a DNS query. What is the IP address for google.com? Normally, your router will respond with the correct IP address for google.com. But if your router is controlled by hackers, they will give you another address, their own address. You will navigate to a site that will look like google.com. You will perform their searches. You will input their sensitive information. But in fact, that site won't be google.com. That site will be controlled by the hackers. When you're downloading a file, somebody that controls your router can control which contents get to you. So you think you're downloading a PDF reader, instead the router can give you a malware that you're going to run on your computer. Of course, any unencrypted data that goes through this router to the internet can also be stolen much easier than from a IoT or from a mobile device. These are all threats that you get exposed to when you're going to your home network. Now, what can we do to protect against these threats? One partial solution would be to isolate your work device from the rest of your devices in the same network. One technical solution, if your router is more advanced and supports this, is to use virtual LANs. Now, basically put all your household devices in one LAN, put your work device in another LAN. If that's not possible, because most home routers don't support VLANs, but have some basic support for guest network. Now, when you're connected to the guest network, you don't have access to the other household devices. They also don't get access to your device, and instead you will just have internet access, so all your traffic will just pass through the router. As I said, this is just a partial solution. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a step towards security. Another partial solution is to use a full VPN connection. Now, what does it mean, a full VPN connection? First of all, this is the normal use case. So you have your work laptop that connects to the router, that goes through the traffic goes through the internet, and then reaches your corporate network, the data center or your cloud. Now, a VPN means that an encryption tunnel is created. All the data that goes from your work laptop to the corporate network go through this router, and everything is encrypted. Your router, even if it's compromised, it can disrupt your services, it can block your access, but it can't read the data you're sending, it can't modify the data you're sending or receiving. So from the start, you have much better protection. Now, a full VPN means not only when you're communicating with your company, but when you're communicating everywhere on the internet, all the traffic gets routed to your corporate network. So when you're accessing Google, for instance, your router won't just connect to Google directly. It will first connect through the internet to your corporate network. And then from your corporate network, you will connect to Google or other internet services. This means that your traffic will be scanned by your corporate security systems, and you will be less exposed to network security threats. Okay, I will talk now from the perspective of a system administrator or for a security officer in your company. So when employees start to work from home, you need to tighten your security policy. Now, what's this security policy? It's a set of rules that needs to be enforced in order to provide proper security. So first, I will talk about access control matrix. Now, what's this matrix? Basically, you have on each line, you have a role in your company, like you have a software developer, you have an accounting, you have a marketing people, you have the CEO. And on the columns, you have various permission, various access to systems in the company. Like who can have access to financial systems, financial statements, who can have access to the web servers? What kind of access do you need? Only read or read write? Who can access the email? Now, the access control matrix defines all these relationships. Now, tightening these security policies means deleting a lot of cells in these tables. Like if, for instance, the CEO, even if the CEO basically owns the company, is the most important in the company, shouldn't have access to something that he doesn't use. For instance, the CEO should be able to read the financial statements that he probably doesn't need to modify them, to write them. So only give him access to what he actually does. If you need more access, then that access should be justified and can be granted. But don't assume anything. Give as little access as possible. The next thing in tightening the security policies is to force all employees to have all the software updates. So you need to have the latest version for all the programs you're running. I will give you two examples. First of all, you have a browser, and let's say the user navigates to a compromised website. Now, what happens when your browser is updated? You have the latest version of the browser. In order to get infected, yes, you can still get infected even if you have an updated browser. But this needs user interaction. You need to click on something, you need to download something and run that thing. Having the latest version of the browser plus some basic security training means you're protecting. Unfortunately, if you have an unpatched browser, an old version, you can get to an exploit kit. The infection will be stealth, your computer will be compromised, and you won't even know it. If it's even worse, if you have an unpatched Windows, so your operating systems isn't patched, I will give you the same example as I gave before. What happens if you're vulnerable to Eternal Blue, which is a 2017 exploit? This means everyone in your local area network can exploit you, can attack you, and will be able to execute code on your system. So even if you have like a good security solution installed, if somebody in your network, some device in your network will get compromised, it will also compromise your work laptop, including all your work data, all your work software, and so on. Another important thing in security policy are the password policies. Now, a good password should be hard to guess, should contain all kinds of lowercase, uppercase, letters, digits, symbols, should be changed frequently, usually once a month or even more often, and should be different for every system. You shouldn't use the same password for email, you shouldn't for Facebook, for your other online identities. So for each online identity, you need a new password that have the same properties. This means that the only sane solution for this is using a password manager. If you're not using a password manager right now, you should consider using one. For critical system in the company, you should also enforce two-factor authentication. Why? Because if somebody gets access to an employee's laptop, it might get access to all his passwords. So two-factor authentication means that he should use some other things like his mobile phone in order to authenticate to critical services. Now, another problem, what happens when an employee requests requests a password change? He will send an email, I forgot my web server password, please reset it. The system administrator that reset the password should check and should be 100% sure the request came from the actual user and is not a scam. Because when we're working in the office, it's very simple. The employee goes to the system administrator knows him personally. He said, okay, it's you, I will reset your password. But just don't trust any request that comes online unless you can confirm the identity of the employee that requires it. Also, when it comes to security solutions, use proper security solution. Now, when I say security solution, I mean more than an antivirus. An antivirus is a basic security solution. It's good for a home laptop, but it's not good for a company. For a company, you need a proper security solution. You need endpoint protection installed on all devices, and all including the work laptops that the employee took home, and all these devices should report to a management console where the system administrator has access. So any security threat will get reported and will be seen by the system administrator that will be able to take measures. Finally, one of the most important aspects is security training. If you want security, you need to train your employees in order to have a good security education. They should at least know what to expect. They should know how to recognize a threat. So when there's an incoming attack, let's say it's a phishing attack, they should recognize, okay, this is the phishing attack. I shouldn't input my private data there. I should input my password there. They should be able to detect impersonation. So when they're receiving an email, they should know how to check if the mail is actually coming from their colleague or from some impersonator. And most important, everyone in the company should know what not to do. I shouldn't install personal software to my work laptop. I shouldn't install this. I shouldn't do that. Oh, basically, this is what I wanted to say about teleworking.
That's very excellent, Ciprian. Thank you very much. I wondered if there were any initial questions which you could put into the chat. Julie, do we have any questions coming in, or any questions during the Ciprian's presentation?
And for now.
Just to highlight the fact that all of the slides will be online, so you can get access to the links. And that was very interesting, in particular on, you know, the transformation of suddenly finding all of your staff members at home. This is something. So I work for an SME, Trust IT Services, and you know, now everybody is either half in the office because we're based in Italy, or at home. And you know, the simple thing of going to in the office next door to the system administrator is clearly now done on whatever communication channel you're using. So there was some very good and practical recommendations there from Ciprian. I just wanted to ask, you talked about forcing staff members and training staff members. In your experience, how easy is it for organizations to get support on, you know, being trained on good cybersecurity practices?
From my experience, it's hard. Now, it's not hard from a technical point of view. It's you can find trainers, you can find security people that would do the training. But the thing is, I know in my organization, the issues when the teleworking started, the problem was that everything was bothered with something else. Like, okay, we should make sure this service runs, we should make sure this runs. And unfortunately, security gets to the last place. Like, okay, if we have time, we're also going to do some security trainings. If we have time, we're gonna at least watch some videos with security trainings in our own pace. And unfortunately, at some point, this gets disregarded and won't get done. From my experience, I think most security training takes place when a company has been hacked. When a security incident happened, then suddenly everybody finds time to do the security training, to enforce the security policies.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I really like that. You know, if we have time, we'll do it. Concept is very true, especially in small companies where you know, you're fighting to continue your work, aren't you, really? Okay, so thank you, Ciprian. What we'll now do is move to Moritz. So Moritz works for Digital SME Alliance, which brings together, it's a support activity for SMEs across Europe, and the Digital SME Alliance are also a partner in the Cyber Watching project. So Moritz, over to you if you want to share your screen and activate your microphone.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you as well for the invitation in general. Thank you, Ciprian, for your very, very insightful presentation. And I think what you summarized there in a few short minutes was the most crucial cyber hygiene or cybersecurity baseline that I think is a valuable lesson for all SMEs that have been forced to go digital, from one moment to the other. Let me now share my screen here, and let's see if this works. Can everyone see the full screen?
Yes, we can see it, Morris.
Okay, great. Yeah, so as Nick mentioned, I want to talk briefly about our organization, European Digital SME Alliance, and then the campaign that we've launched when the whole COVID thing started, which is called Digital Solutions in Times of COVID-19. Let me jump right in. Please make use of the raising hand function if you have any questions ad hoc during the presentation or for clarification reasons. But otherwise, I'll go right ahead since the time is limited. Briefly about Digital SME. We are Europe's first and largest ICT SME association. We have around 30 members, and we represent more than 20,000 digital small and medium-sized enterprises and startups across Europe. Ciprian from Cluj IT Cluster is also a member of one of our members. So very, very glad to see them here. Briefly about our membership structure, we have obviously on the micro level, we have the individual enterprises that are associated in national associations or supranational associations, such as the 3D ICT network, of which Cluj IT is a member, of course, or local hubs and smaller clusters that are direct members. But we're also going to introduce very soon a new service, a new membership model for individual enterprises that can become our members or members of a club that we're going to found, the European Digital Innovators Club, directly, but more on that a bit later. Who are our main constituents? So the members of our members. We don't just represent any kind of ICT SMEs, but mostly the real front runners and developers that actually invent, develop novel or already existing ICT solutions or provide ICT services. We call these companies the digital enablers. We have ICT security providers, as you can see, B2B software solution providers, data and IoT specialized SMEs, industrial AI SMEs, or also IT consultancies, and many, many more. What do we mean by digital enablers? These are the companies that enable, that help other non-digital enterprises to become digital, to guide them through their digital transformation. And this is a really crucial point to keep in mind. Skip over this briefly. What we do in general is lobbying, networking, and we help our members access funds. Of course, we're organized in specialized working groups. For example, the European SME focus group on artificial intelligence, or brand new joint IoT and digital SME working group on IoT. Now, talking about the campaign itself. A little bit of background. We called it Digital Solutions in Times of COVID-19 because we wanted to encompass more solutions and tools than just those that you would perhaps immediately associate with tools to mitigate the effects of the virus itself. So more broadly, we're looking for any and all kinds of tools or solutions that can help companies, citizens, or also public administrations to cope with the ripples, with the effects that this pandemic has caused. The COVID-19 crisis, we sometimes call it a crisis that has caused a sudden wave of forced digitalization that will actually stay for good beyond the time of effect of the crisis or of the virus itself. These changes they came to stay. We saw in the beginning that companies, public administrations, citizens, consumers were able to perform a very fast and in many cases also successful digital transition. So we've included some metrics here, but the most important takeaway again is that digitalization is possible. We've seen this forced wave of digitalization because businesses have been forced to actually operate remotely. So they had to come up with models to keep working. We see three main trends also for the post-COVID digital economy that was kickstarted by this crisis. We have the highest ever investment flow to digital companies. We have adoption of digital solutions and services by traditionally non-digital firms and also by public services. And we have obviously growing investment in digital infrastructure to support the former 2 points. And our campaign actually allows European digital small and medium-sized enterprises to stay on top of these trends. The campaign itself is an initiative that came originally from the bottom up. So it was an initiative, or similar initiatives existed in similar contexts, where European SMEs and startups provided digital solutions to mitigate the effects of COVID-19, in a lot of cases for free or at greatly reduced costs. So we actually got the idea from a solidarity initiative in Germany of our German member BitMe. And we wanted to encapsulate this, this solidarity offer essentially, and kind of harmonize the offer and bring it together in one place, in one catalog, where companies can submit their solutions to digitalisme.eu/solutions in a lot of different categories. The common denominator is, does it help companies, citizens, public administrations during this challenging time? The goal of our campaign is twofold. On one hand, we want to showcase that there are innovative European solutions in this time of forced digitalization. Not everyone has to use Zoom, if you allow me the brief sidekick here. There are actually European solutions for a lot of these needs that players have right now as a result of COVID. And the second prong of this goal is to provide, of course, businesses, citizens, and public administrations with access to these digital tools and solutions to keep working. We launched this fully searchable and filterable catalog, which we think is among the first in the COVID-19 response initiatives that we saw. You know, that I don't know if you have come across, maybe you can actually put this in the chat because I'm interested in it. Have you come across initiatives that try to, you know, pool resources and solutions to mitigate COVID-19? And if you have, how were these results presented? Because what we saw in our own research, what also gave us a bit of the impetus to go forward with this initiative, was that a lot of these resources, a lot of these initiatives were just essentially Excel sheets that were embedded somewhere, that were not really user-friendly. You couldn't really find what you were looking for. It wasn't visually appealing. So we thought we can do a little bit better than that. And so we created this search filterable catalog where you can actually go ahead and search by name, by sector, by service, and find a solution that helps you. We have almost 200 solutions in the catalog so far. What are the solutions concretely? Okay, we got this nice poll here. Thank you. See if anyone has remembered. As I mentioned before, the solutions that we feature are from many, many different categories, of course, including e-health, where we have solutions providing online medical advice for people that, you know, have no idea what's happening, what they should do and what they should not do. A lot of people have questions that aren't sufficiently answered by public administrations in a lot of cases. So we have a tool or a company that provided that with actual health care experts, doctors, and so on. We have a healthcare providers marketplace. For example, a UK SME that launched this marketplace, which is essentially for example, free independent nurses in your area. If you have someone you need to care for, you can actually connect via the app and connect with these care providers. Telemonitoring of vitals of patients, IoT devices, wearables that can monitor people's heart rates, blood pressure, and so on and so forth. But also more into the clinical data management of hospitals themselves. It's crucial that we keep track of the data to be able to analyze the virus and its spread and so on and so forth. Contact tracing apps, you name it. I'm not going to go over everything here in this list, but cybersecurity, we already got a very good introduction by Ciprian of the threats that people faced during teleworking. And a lot of companies that are confronted with this new situation don't have this information. And even with great presentations like the one by Ciprian, if you listen to this presentation or see it as a business, doesn't necessarily mean that you can actually follow all of these steps. So one of our solutions that we have in the catalog is a CISO as a service product, essentially. And CISO is for Chief Information Security Officer. So if you're a small business, you very often don't have the resources or maybe don't even have the idea of actually recruiting a Chief Information Security Officer. So in a lot of cases, it's possible to actually go to another company to get a CISO as a service rather than having a full position that helps you with securing your workplace and implementing different cybersecurity solutions. Setting up the infrastructure, there are also full protection solutions that you can purchase. And what we also really put a lot of emphasis on in our work in general is to facilitate an ecosystem of B2B, long-term B2B relationships, where you don't just purchase an off-the-shelf solution, but you actually have a company that provides you a digital solution that is tailored to your needs and guides you and accompanies you through your own digital or digitalization journey. And our solutions are also obviously provided by European SMEs, which you can contact and which you can enter into one of these long-term fruitful relationships with. Smart working, which is the topic of this webinar, of course. We have a myriad of solutions in that sector, groupware solutions, task and project management solutions for everyone, to keep on the same page when you're not in the office anymore. Online conferences are also from video calls to full conference solutions, e-invoicing, accounting, EID, collaboration tools, and so on and so forth. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go through all of these solutions here, but you can check out the catalog yourself. Let's see here, next slide. We also launched a cooperation with the demand side. So far, I was more talking about the supply side, companies that offer their solutions to this catalog. But we also work with public administrations and businesses to see what they actually need and what they cannot find in the catalog. Early on, our campaign supported a COVID-19 emergency service that is active in Catalonia and other regions in procuring an online marketplace for ventilators, which was in high demand and couldn't be satisfied by the market, to bring together producers of ventilators in the assembly lines, but also producers of parts and the demand side on one marketplace, which they then developed with the help of the SMEs that we connected to them. We launched a cooperation with Open and Agile Smart Cities in supporting city administrations with their challenges. And we also now feature on the campaign page a B2B matchmaking option where you can actually input your solution or your challenge, rather. No matter who you are and where you're from, you can actually say, okay, I'm struggling in finding a solution that helps me with this and that. And then we can see if we have someone in our network that can help you with this challenge. I'm just going to skip a little bit over the campaign stages. Partners, obviously, we have different partners, Cyberwatching, OASC. We launched a cooperation, even GCC, EU-GCC Dialogue on Economic Diversification. So we're not technically limited to Europe, but we offer, of course, the European solutions. And let me briefly talk about the next steps beyond this immediate COVID-19 crisis, what we can take away. We have seen that hundreds of European SMEs and startups have demonstrated excellence, agileness, innovation, and their top-class solutions during the crisis. We want to continue to grow the campaign, to grow the number of solutions, to do outreach, to tell people about the campaign. We also want to cooperate with the demand side, as I mentioned, but we want to generally contribute to an awareness in the European sphere, not just the digital sphere, that European SMEs and startups offer cutting-edge, innovative solutions, and that in a time of crisis, you don't need to necessarily fall back on, non-European solutions. Maybe there's cutting-edge SMEs and startups in your very city, or in your region, or in your country, or in other European countries. And we think that these European SMEs and startups deserve visibility, they deserve awareness, and they deserve also support by policymakers. So this campaign, as I mentioned in the goals before, it serves to really raise the awareness about the European solutions that are worthwhile. And we also, want to bring together the providers of the campaign solutions and top European innovators in what I mentioned before, the new service that we're launching, which is the European Digital Innovators Club, which is a new membership model where cutting-edge SMEs and startups can come together to have in one place all the European resources, essentially, that are available in terms of funding from European institutions and other funding providers, in terms of networking opportunities on the European level, where B2B networking is one of the main sources for income of the European SMEs, of course. And just in general, to stay connected in policy regards, and to give your input in policy developments. Too often, the developments that are happening in European policymaking are a bit removed from the actual needs of SMEs that are active in Europe. So we want to kind of bridge this gap and give possibilities for direct input, if you're in this club, to our surveys, when we develop policy positions, and so on and so forth. You can engage with the campaign by visiting the campaign page, browse the catalog, find solutions that help you in your situation, or submit your challenge and let us know what you're struggling with, and maybe we can help you and bring you together with providers of solutions. Yeah, also, if you're interested in the SME Excellence Club, you'll have my email address. Email me, I'll put you in the respective mailing list and keep you updated about the developments. With that, I want to finish and ask if there's any questions. I didn't look during the campaign.
So what we'll do is, because we're a little bit out of time.
Oh, did I go over time, Nick? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What we could do is we can stay on an extra 10 minutes at the end. I'd like to pass though straight to John. There's a question in the Q&A for you, Moritz, and one in the chat as well. Okay. So if you can have a look at them.
Yeah,
the one in the chat in particular is quite an interesting one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick.
No problem. And
do you want me to go into that right now or later?
Well, we can go in later. If you want to add anything in the chat now, then great, and then we can look at the very end. So I'll hand over now to John. John, away you go. Thank you for your patience. You're on mute, John.
There you go. I'm back off mute. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Nick. No, it's been fascinating set of presentations already. We've seen some terrific information there from Ciprian and the great work that the digital SME, European SME guys are doing. I just wanted to have a very quick, relatively high level look at some of the steps that people can take, some of the things that organizations and individuals can do to make sure that their cybersecurity is as solid as possible. Now, actually, cybersecurity is such a huge problem. There's so many hacks and so many different things that seem to be hitting us from all over the world. The police struggle to deal with any international ransomware attacks. Once you've been hit, there doesn't seem to be anything you can do to recover. You know, there's brand new attacks being created every single day. So it's very, very easy for people and organizations to think, do you know what? I don't understand it. I don't see how I can stop it. Therefore, I should probably just ignore it and cross my fingers and hope that I don't get hit, because it's very difficult to know what specifically you can do. And there's so many things that you can do. You can very easily end up spending too much time and money on trying to protect yourself instead of running your business, which is what you should be doing every day. So I just wanted to have a quick look at what the things that can be done and see just how complicated they are, and in fact, how complicated they can be, you know, how much more simple we can make them. So I've got some must-dos here. Now, some of you who are used to watching presentations on virtual media like this will immediately recognize that I'm about to build a Venn diagram, 3 circles, because you simply can't have a PowerPoint slide deck without 3 circles. I think that's part of the rules. Our first circle here is the first thing that you absolutely should definitely do the moment you've decided that you're going to pay attention to cybersecurity. You do this first, and it's a risk assessment. Now, I know what a lot of you are already thinking. Risk assessments are time consuming. You have to get consultants on board. Lots of consultants will charge you $50,000 for a 60-page report of a risk assessment. And actually, that's really not what you want to be doing. Let's look at the information, the data that you hold, and decide which data, what data is it that you're working with, that if that data was stolen, made public, or even blocked so that nobody could get at it, it would put you or your organization at risk. And by risk, we mean risk of financial loss or risk of reputation, which would drive the business out of business. So look at the data that you're holding. Let's not try and protect our internal telephone directories or the directions to our office or anything else that isn't particularly risky to us. Let's just look at the very, very important data immediately and decide what it is we're trying to protect and limit that down. Let's not have too much on this risk assessment. Let's just narrow it down to the very important things. And those things might include, what is the risk of a breach? What is the risk of somebody actually getting in and getting hold of that data or blocking that data? And then compare that to the risk of a complaint about the way that you handle data from a GDPR perspective. Because we're already seeing that action by people that are complaining about the way organizations deal with personal data can be just as damaging from a reputational perspective as having a data breach or a hack. So first thing to do, narrow it down, find out exactly
is it just me or?
No, it's not just you, unfortunately.
I like to think as if I be right and, you know, in my shed, and it means somebody might be able to get in and possibly steal my really old garden shears that I use for cutting the hedge, which is very rusty and broken. You know, these aren't particularly risky pieces of information or pieces of kit that I really care about whether they get stolen, compared to maybe inside the house. If I'm in the kitchen, you know, I've got knives and forks in my cupboards. Yeah, not particularly important. But upstairs, I've probably got my watch, my jewelry, my wallet, and all of my important things. So this for me is about, first think about the jewelry, the watch, and all of the stuff in the bedroom. Don't worry about the garden fence and what's in your garden shed. By the way, if you keep your gold watch in the shed, in the garden, you should probably move it to the bedroom. Just a thought. So we're going to narrow down our risk assessment. The second thing we then do is we need to do a penetration test. Now, a penetration test doesn't need to be a huge, great big vulnerability scan or some consulting organization that's going to try and test every single aspect of your network or every single device. This is more about finding a friendly, what we term a white hat hacker. This is a phrase used for friendly hackers who will work for you and tell you what they've discovered. And we want to get a penetration test done, but don't penetration test everything. Tell the hacker where your gold watch is, and then ask your hacker to get your gold watch. So this is about explaining to the hacker where you store your sensitive data and then asking them if they can get at it. They don't need to be testing the garden shed, and they don't need to be testing the kitchen window. They just need to be looking at your data. So you can make this a much simpler exercise, but it's an absolutely crucial exercise to understand what are your vulnerabilities right now. Right away, what are your vulnerabilities? And they might come back and tell you there's a hole in the fence, there's a broken window, there's a lock that doesn't work, etc. And then you can then decide what you're going to do about this. So first of all, get hold of a hacker, tell them what you want them to attack, and then get some information from them about your vulnerabilities right here, right now, because this gives you a proper, sensible picture of what your vulnerabilities actually are. Now, the next thing you should do is you should sort out some sort of monitoring. Just raise awareness, get some technical monitoring, and start looking at not everything, not the entire garden and the entire house. Let's have a look at the very things that that pen tester, that hacker has told you about. Those are your biggest vulnerabilities. So I'm going to put a spotlight on the hole in the fence. I'm going to put a spotlight on the broken window. And I'm going to do that first before I attempt to repair the broken fence or repair the window, because I don't need to address those threats, those vulnerabilities straight away. I need to understand whether there's anybody trying to attack me through them. So if we use the analogy of the garden fence with a hole in it, are there bad people out there who might fence to hole in the fence? I have a threat because there's some bad people out there that might try and break in, but I don't have security incidents happening here and now. So let's get some monitoring in place. Let's pay attention to where our vulnerabilities are and make sure that we can see things happening. Are we being attacked? How are we being attacked? Before we rush out and start repairing holes in the fence. Because we might get carried away with trying to repair things that really they can be dealt with elsewhere. For example, if I put all the jewelry in the bedroom into a safe, the hole in the fence ceases to be a big problem. So this is our third element, is security monitoring. And it doesn't need to be technology. You can just simply enhance the awareness of your own people, yourselves, look at emails, look at malicious activity, look at the devices that you're running at home, exactly as Ciprian told us. Look at how those are working, look at who's downloading what, because this is all about security monitoring. Use your own people and your own eyes and your own intelligence to do your monitoring. And sometimes it is handy to get a technical auditing solution, some kind of monitoring solution that can just help you with that and monitor 24/7 those things that are vulnerabilities, while you then think about what you're going to work on first. So here is our Venn diagram. Here are our three things that we absolutely should do first. And you can probably see here that these work together. If I do a risk assessment and I do that properly, just thinking about my gold watch, then it will tell me what I need to pen test. So I don't have to get a very big, expensive pen test. I just get a small pen test to see if people can get at the risk that I've identified. If I penetration test, it tells me what I should be shining a spotlight on. So the penetration test tells me what I should be monitoring so that I can see, is anybody crawling through that hole in the fence? Just having the hole in the fence isn't the problem. And then if I do the security monitoring, I'll start to identify new risks The monitoring system will tell me who's attacking. My own people will tell me that there's an increase in a certain type of email that's obviously a scam. And if I gather that information in to see what threat intelligence I can get, it will tell me about new risks. And then I can have another risk assessment. And bear in mind, these don't take long. These are very short, quick exercises that you and your management team can do. I'll do another risk assessment. Maybe I'll get somebody to try and penetrate a new threat and see if I can get a quick penetration test done. Or I'll simply tweak my monitoring system to make sure that I'm covering what has been identified as a new risk. And this is a very quick, easy, simple process that I can just cycle through regularly to make sure that I'm capturing everything. Now, once I've got this, then I can start thinking about, right, what should I be fixing? Should I fix the hole in the fence first? Should I fix the broken window in the shed? Should I fix the lock on the kitchen door? Should I get it safe for the bedroom? These are all decisions that you have, depending on how much money you have, depending on the level of the risk, etc. And this is where we put every other product or service in the whole spectrum of cybersecurity capability. It all fits in the middle of this Venn diagram, because unless you've done these things first, how on earth do you really know what you need to buy? Salespeople out there will tell you you have to buy the latest firewall. Salespeople will tell you you have to have the very latest in intrusion detection and intrusion prevention and cryptography and AI and blockchain. And you can spend a lot of money just because they sound like good ideas. But to really understand whether you need or whether you should buy things, then please do this process first, because this tells you specifically what you must buy, not what you could buy because it looks interesting. And this could range from consulting, hardware, software, auditing services, or even just increasing your insurance. They would all be a good mitigations. So let's have another quick look at these three, because they can be surrounded, and all three of those can involve training. We've already mentioned under security monitoring, we can train our staff to better recognize phishing emails. We can train our staff to better recognize problems on the network, or unusual traffic, or unusual incidents, etc., so that our own people can help us to be security monitors. We can also do some extra training on risk assessment. Let's understand GDPR as a regulation. Let's understand data protection as a principle. Let's understand cybersecurity, understanding confidentiality, availability, etc., of our data, so that we can be better equipped to run these risk assessments for ourselves. So this is also something that we can do some training on. And if you do have IT staff that are dedicated in your business, then put them on a penetration testing course. It will save you having to go out and buy penetration testing services all the time. If you have your own IT people, or at least one of them, trained up to do some hacking, some ethical hacking, penetration testing, what's sometimes called red teaming. This is the ability to literally attack your own network to find the problems and fix them. So training is a very important aspect of being able to do all of these things that we've just described. And this can be awareness, general awareness for some staff, or it can be skills training for very specific staff that are going to handle incidents for you. The next thing we should do is, if we've taken the trouble, if we've gone to all of the hassle to do all of these things, we do regular risk assessments, we understand penetration testing to find our vulnerabilities here and now. We've got security monitoring in place, both people and technology, to tell us what our vulnerabilities are through time. We've bought other products and services perhaps to enhance it, and we've trained ourselves up. Then you should be shouting that from the rooftops. You should be advertising that. You should be showing the whole world that you are a much more cyber secure business than your competitors. There's a huge advantage in the marketplace as a differentiator to be able to say to your target customers, you should be doing business with us because we are a better, more secure data privacy company. And this is whether you wash cars for a living, whether you run a factory for a living, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer for a living. Anything that you do as a company, you will have a good differentiator if you say, and we are also cyber secure. So we'll deal with your data properly, and we are cyber secure when we deal with you. So how do you do that? And the answer is you go out and you become compliant with some kind of best practice framework or regulation or standard, so that you can then use that as evidence for the good work that you've done. In the UK, we have something called Cyber Essentials. The Cyber Essentials scheme is a UK government scheme designed to be pushed out to all organizations. And it just covers the minimum things that a business should be able to do from a Cyber Essentials perspective. And earlier in this call, we also heard Nick talking about the it's a very similar Cyber Essentials scheme, which is the minimum seal that was described, which is a self-assessment, which you can then get a seal, get a badge, which you can use to differentiate your company by saying, we have proved that we do cybersecurity to this standard. So whether it's a European regulation, whether it's the UK Cyber Essentials program, it doesn't matter. It's a badge, it's a certificate, it's evidence that you have done some good work to secure your company. And that's a real differentiator. If you're a larger company and you want to go further than that, or if you are a company that wants to deal with bigger customers, you might want to go for ISO 27001. It's one of the ISO family of standards. It's internationally recognized as an information security standard. It costs a bit more to get. It adds a little bit more work and effort. For example, Cyber Essentials is less than 100 questions that you need to be asked. It's about 60 questions. ISO 27001 is over 300 questions. So you can see that there's more detail, a little bit more work. It might cost you a little bit more money to get it. But in some cases, you have to be ISO 27001 certified in order to bid for big tenders or bid for big business with local government. But whichever one you opt for, the purpose of these in this instance is to prove to the world that you are taking cybersecurity seriously and doing something about your cybersecurity, because then you're getting a tangible benefit from all of this work. It's not just about protecting yourself. It's about using that as a differentiator to benefit your business and to help to grow your business. So use cybersecurity as an opportunity to differentiate yourselves. So this is our diagram. These are the must-dos. There's an awful lot more to cybersecurity than this. I know there's probably people on this call looking at that tiny red triangle and thinking, how can you put tens of thousands of innovative, wonderful products with flashing lights and geniuses that run services, you know, in multi-million-pound companies, and you've squished it all down into a little triangle? And please just remember, it's about scale. It's about what's appropriate for you as a business. Do a very quick risk assessment. Just look where your gold is in terms of information. Do a very quick, easy penetration test. Don't spend a huge amount of money. Just find out whether your gold is accessible, and then put some monitoring in place, people and systems, just to keep an eye on what's happening. Train everybody up. And if you've gone to those lengths already, even before you're fixing things, get yourself a badge. Go and get yourself a certificate to prove to the world that you're taking cybersecurity seriously, and you'll feel better about your business, and your customers will feel better about doing business with you. So these are just some must-dos. I did say it was a relatively high level. There's only these 5 things that we talk about. If you wanted to drill down on any of these, we can. I represent Cyber Wales, which is an ecosystem. In fact, we have 9 cybersecurity clusters in our country. 2 of them are geographic, north and south. And then, as you can see, we've got subject-specific clusters covering things like data protection, IP, women in cyber, education and training. Capture the flag is that red teaming, where we teach people how to be their own penetration testers, how to be hackers. And then we have international clusters that we also collaborate with, and we run a cluster for the Middle East region ourselves, where our own members present to the region with their expertise. We have about 2,000 members from about 800 organizations in our country, and we're growing all the time. So that's who we are. I know we've gone over the allowed time for the overall webinar, and thank you very much for staying with us and paying attention to that. I am perfectly happy to take questions, but I'm going to hand back first to Nick, so that Nick can marshal that, and we'll see if see how much time we've got to deal with questions. But that's it from me, and I hope that was useful.
Thank you very much, John. That was excellent and a really nice way to round off the webinar. It was very good. I think a good link to Ciprian's presentation at the start. You know, this analogy that, you know, companies don't have time. We'll do it later. To the very practical decision to really focus on what's essential. Where's the gold? And, you know, you be practical in how you tackle these things, which cybersecurity challenges, which are a real challenge for small companies, because you have to run your company at the same time. Julie, do we have any questions? I know that some of the questions have been looked at during the presentations already. I wondered if Moritz or Ciprian, you wanted to add anything to the comments that you made, or John?
I would like to, yes, because I think we got a very, very important question from Catherine Boudou. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name, Catherine. Let me actually activate my video. Let me try to answer this question without exceeding the scope of this webinar, and also my own, you know, opinion as a representative of my organization. I really agree with what you said. First, your question had two parts. You said, don't you think that 200 solutions is a bit too many? Well, since we do have this search and filterable catalog, I don't think it is too many, because you can actually just use the catalog as essentially a database that you can browse with solutions that help you. There's just one-click search tool. You can type cybersecurity and you get cybersecurity solutions. So in that regard, and then you can even filter it more. So I don't think in that regard it's too many. But your second part of your question, what are the connections to ENISA that also provides a toolkit? And there are indeed many an alternative or many an initiative that have a similar focus. And I can only speak from our own perspective. We have tried to reach out to a lot of initiatives. We have tried to reach out to European institutions. We've tried to say, we don't need to be the leading force in this campaign. We're perfectly happy to support with our solutions another tool that, you know, that would feature perhaps, you know, a database where you can search, and then you can activate a little tick that says solutions by European SMEs and startups. And we were perfectly happy to cooperate in any and all ways. But yeah, unfortunately, these kind of cooperations, we never heard back from a lot of players. And I really agree with you. Our approach in general was not to distinguish ourselves with a fantastic campaign. It's just a duplication of efforts, but to just contribute to the efforts to provide digital solutions to mitigate the crisis, while at the same time, as you saw in the goals, showcasing that these solutions are often European, and Europe often has really, really cool solutions by SMEs and startups. So I don't know if I hope that answered your questions. Otherwise, you can feel free to have a follow-up questions from my side.
Thanks, Moritz. There's a question to Ciprian from Vasilios. Sorry for my pronunciation. Prevalakis. Go ahead, yeah.
So the original question was about Cisco provided security. And I made an analogy with this, with a concept. I think it was introduced by Bruce Schneier. At least he wrote a lot about it, like some time ago. It's called feudal security, and it made the analogy like in the medieval times, you had a lord and you paid some fees to that lord and he would take care of your security. And some security provider these days act in the same way, like you pay a fee, you pay some taxes and you get security. My recommendation was if you can afford and you can provide your own security, it's better than this. But if you don't have any kind of security, feudal security is better than nothing. So of course it's not perfect, of course you get exposed to some risks, but why this would be okay for an SME? Let's say Cisco would get hacked, like for government sponsored cyber terrorism. Their first targets wouldn't be small companies. Because when they get hacked, they usually have a recovery plan, they usually block the attackers, so they will have a very limited window of opportunity. So even if they get hacked, I don't think a small company would be one of their first targets. They will probably go for juicier targets. That's my take on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And feudal being the right word, I think. John, there's a question to you about the cyber essentials and how you get a certificate from Goran Pavlovich.
Yes, thank you, Goran. It's a good question. Cyber Essentials is a scheme that was created by the UK's GCHQ, the government's headquarters for cyber. They have a front-facing organization as part of GCHQ called the National Cybersecurity Center. And I know that each country has their own equivalents of this. So our National Cybersecurity Center created Cyber Essentials. It's a minimum just covering 5 essential areas of cyber, like, your firewall, whether you've got user accounts, how you manage user accounts, do you do patching, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very basic and very fundamental. But it's seen as being a good first step for any organization to prove that they're taking Cyber Essentials seriously and at least covering themselves from these 5 areas. The 5 areas actually are really interesting. They took all of the successful attacks that were gathered together over the year and then grouped them into categories. And then they took the top 5 categories, which usually accounts for more than 80% of all successful attacks. And they make sure their questions cover those 5 categories. So the question set changes each year as they do these assessments. And it's just designed to make sure that you're 80% covered. You can never be completely cyber secure. That's not a real thing, but at least they're trying their best. So just to tell you a bit more about the scheme, the Cyber Essentials scheme is controlled by our GCHQ. There's an accreditation body that trains up certification bodies. And certification bodies can be IT companies, so Trust IT, for example, Trust IT Services, where Nick works, they could in fact get themselves trained and accredited as a certification body, and then they could issue certificates out to end user companies. Now, one of the challenges for us is that can only be in the UK because this is a UK scheme. But it is possible for companies anywhere in the world to apply for Cyber Essentials as the UK scheme, and then communicate with a certification body, an IT company like Nick's company, for example, based in the UK, who are already an accredited certification body. And then that entity can communicate with you, have web sessions with you, get you to fill in the self-assessment questionnaire, and then they will then help you to get to the point where you are cyber secure. And that might involve saying, you're going to need some more equipment, you're going to need some more services. They won't attempt to provide that because, you might be in one part of the world and they're obviously in the UK, but they'll at least help you to go and get that information from your local IT companies. And then you can come back when you're ready, when you're secure, and say, I think I'm ready now. They will then, continue with that certification, and you'll get issued a certificate from GCHQ in the UK saying that against their standard, you are considered secure. Now, in a lot of countries of the world, I know there was a comment earlier on the chat box from Catherine who was saying that, unfortunately, with the UK's Brexit, it means that some policies within organizations are saying that it's not a good idea to buy products and services or things from the UK. You know, we knew this was coming. It is a thing. And every country has its own views about which countries you should and shouldn't buy IT, you know, cybersecurity services from. But there just does seem to be a general acceptance that cybersecurity from the UK or from, you know, British cybersecurity experts has a certain pedigree to it. Now, if this is true for you in your marketplace, in your country, with the companies that you try to sell to, then this would be a good idea. It means you would be able to say, I'm certified against a UK certification body. If that's not an issue, and in your marketplace and the people you provide to, they're not really bothered about, you know, that UK side of it. And as Catherine said, if it's something that in your country that's not considered to be an assured provider, this wouldn't have any bearing. Might as well go. So I value bodies as members of Cyber Wales, and we can arrange that for you wherever you are in the world. If not, if it's not going to carry much of a differentiator for you in your marketplace, then definitely go and look at the Cyberwatching EU's seal that has been developed by Nick and his team in conjunction with others. That lightweight cybersecurity seal, and have a look at that, because, you know, it sounds like it's a very similar setup. And it might do exactly the same job for you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, so I wanted to actually close on with this slide, which hopefully you can see some of these free resources which we provide through our EC funded project. So these are totally independent. There's no, you know, there's nobody making a profit from them. So they're done by experts within our consortium. And we're quite excited about this lightweight cybersecurity seal, which we're doing in collaboration with SGS, which are very prominent in the cybersecurity certification world. And basically it recognizes the fact that certification is a bit difficult for SMEs. It's too expensive. It's a huge undertaking to do. So this is a way to deliver this through an online platform in a lightweight manner, which will hopefully, again, like everything we've discussed, raise awareness and ensure best practice to ensure that companies are looking after the gold and that the gold is kept very safe. So I think we should close the webinar now. I'd like to thank all three of our presenters for some excellent and very practical presentations, which is exactly what we wanted from them. All the presentations will be available online afterwards, and do get in touch with us if you want to contact the speakers directly. And yeah, thank you very much. We'll be holding another webinar in September, and we hope that we will continue this collaboration with the cluster organizations to deliver practical webinars on this and many other cybersecurity topics in the coming months. So with that, I would like to wish everybody a very nice summer and stay safe in this difficult time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie, as well.
Yes, thank you to Julie and Valeria and team at Trust IT for the support. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.